A shadow fell upon Athens in the year 490 BC. News arrived in Greece from across the Aegean Sea. The Persian Empire, a vast and powerful force, was on the move. Their target? Athens. The Athenians knew what was at stake. Their freedom, their way of life, hung in the balance. The Persians were led by King Darius I. He was a ruler of immense ambition. He desired to expand his empire westward. Darius had already conquered many Greek cities in Asia Minor. Now, he set his sights on the Athenian heartland. The Athenians had a long and proud history of independence. They were not about to bow down to any foreign power. They would fight tooth and nail to defend their city. The stage was set for confrontation that would echo through the ages. Darius's invasion of Greece was not unprovoked. A decade earlier, Athens had dared to support a rebellion against Persian rule in Ionia, a region in present-day Turkey. This act of defiance had enraged Darius. He vowed to make the Athenians pay. The Persian Empire was a formidable force. It boasted a massive army drawn from every corner of Darius's vast domain. From the scorching deserts of Egypt to the rugged mountains of Persia, warriors flocked to his banner. They were equipped with excellent weapons and armor. Darius's invasion fleet was equally impressive. Hundreds of warships, their oars churning the sea into a froth, carried his army across the Aegean. The sight of this armada must have struck fear into the hearts of many Greeks. Darius was confident of victory. He believed the Athenians would crumble before his might, yet he underestimated the courage and resolve of the Athenian people. The Persian army landed at Marathon, a plain about 26 miles north of Athens. It was an ideal location for Darius's cavalry to maneuver. The Athenians knew they had to act quickly. They sent their army, led by the general Miltiades, to confront the invaders. The Athenians were outnumbered. Their army was smaller than the Persian force. Yet, they were determined to fight for their freedom. The Athenians were joined by a small contingent of Plataeans, their loyal allies. Together, they marched north to meet the enemy. The Athenian army was composed primarily of citizen soldiers, called hoplites. These were heavily armed infantrymen. They carried spears, short swords, and large round shields. They fought in a tightly packed formation known as a phalanx. The phalanx was a formidable fighting formation. It relied on discipline and teamwork. Each hoplite's shield protected not only himself, but also his comrade to his left. When properly formed and utilized, the phalanx could withstand even the fiercest charges. The two armies faced each other across the plains of Marathon. The tension was palpable. The fate of Athens and perhaps all of Greece hung in the balance. The Persians were confident in their superior numbers and waited for the Athenians to attack. The Athenians, however, were in a difficult position. Attacking the Persians in the open plain would be suicidal. The Persian cavalry was far more numerous than the Athenian horsemen and would easily outflank and destroy the Athenian army. The Greek general needed a plan. He had to find a way to negate the Persian advantage in cavalry, so he decided to wait. He held his position on the slopes of a hill overlooking the plain. This gave him the advantage of higher ground. It also limited the effectiveness of the Persian cavalry. The Persians grew impatient and were about to make their move. For days, the two armies stood their ground. Accustomed to quick victories, the Persians grew restless. They taunted the Athenians, challenging them to battle. Miltiades, however, refused to be drawn into a fight on Persian terms. The Athenians were fighting for their homeland. They were highly motivated. They were also well trained and disciplined. They would wait for the right moment to strike. Miltiades knew that time was on his side. The Persians became increasingly vulnerable to the Athenian navy as they remained longer at Marathon. The Athenian fleet, though smaller than the Persian armada, was still a potent force. It controlled the Aegean Sea. The Persians relied on their ships for supplies and reinforcements. If the Athenians could cut off their supply lines, they could starve the Persian army into submission. The Persians were aware of this danger. They decided to force a confrontation. They loaded a portion of their army onto ships. They planned to sail to Athens and attack the city directly. Seeing his opportunity, Miltiades decided to attack. He ordered his men to charge down the slopes. With their battle cry echoing across the plain, the Athenians crashed into the Persian lines. The fighting was fierce and bloody. The Greeks were outnumbered, but not outmatched, and fought with incredible courage and ferocity. Their phalanx held firm against repeated Persian assaults. The Persian cavalry was hampered by the uneven terrain and unable to break through the Athenian lines. The Greek general had cleverly extended his army's flanks, making them equal in length to the Persian front line. This was a risky move. It thinned out his center. However, it paid off. The Athenians were able to envelop the Persian army, attacking from the sides as well as the front. Surprised by the ferocity of the Athenian attack, the Persians began to waver. Their lines broke, and they fled back to their ships in disarray. The Athenians pursued them relentlessly, slaughtering them by the thousands. The Greek historian Herodotus recorded that the Persians lost more than 6,000 soldiers, while the Greeks lost just over 200. The Battle of Marathon was a stunning victory for the Athenians. They had defeated a much larger Persian force. The victory proved that the Persians were not invincible. The victory also marked a turning point in the Greco-Persian Wars. After their defeat at Marathon, the Persians retreated back to Asia Minor. They would return to Greece a decade later, but the memory of their defeat at Marathon lingered. It fueled the Greek resistance to Persian aggression. The Battle of Marathon was more than just a military victory. It was a victory for freedom and democracy. It showed that a small force of free citizens could defeat a much larger empire. The battle became a defining moment in Athenian history. The Marathon story became a tale told and retold. It served as an inspiration to generations of Greeks. The battle entered the realm of legend. It became a symbol of courage, determination, and the triumph of the human spirit. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Trotastoria to continue learning from the annals of history.